Hello, in this video I'll show you how to create an impossible mirror image like this by combining three images into one. In the first image here, you can see our gentleman here is holding his left hand up to the mirror surface and taking the picture with his right hand. In the second image he's switched hands, so now he's taking the picture with his left hand and holding his right hand up to the mirror surface. And in the third image he holds the camera slightly lower down in order to capture the face. And this gives us all the parts of the body we need to make it look as if the camera is invisible and create our effect. And we'll be doing this using simple layer masking and selection skills. So let's get started. We'll start by opening up our mirror 1 and mirror 2 images here. And once they're open in Photoshop, the first thing we'll do is grab the Move tool from the Tools panel over here, and we're going to drag the second image, mirror 2, up to the tab of the first image here, and when they switch over, still holding the mouse button down, I'll drag the image on top of the other one to copy it over. And if we go to the layers panel here by going to Window, Layers, you can see we now have both of our images on separate layers here. Now we can hit 5 to drop the opacity of that top layer to 50%, and that helps us when positioning. So we can then hit Command or Control and T. That's Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and that allows us to transform the layer. So what we need to do now is try and position this top layer so that it's in alignment with the bottom layer. So we can just rotate slightly and drag it down, and I'm trying to line up these frames here around the window, and once that's roughly in place we can just hit Enter to apply. Then we can just hit 0 to bring the opacity of that top layer back up to 100%. Next we want to select the part of this top layer that we want to use. So we obviously want to use the right hand side of the frame. So I'm going to grab the Lasso tool from the Tools panel over here, and starting at the very top here, I'm just going to drag a rough selection that goes down through the body and then bring the selection back around the edges and back up to the top. So now I've got a selection of this right hand side of the image. And then we want to soften the edges of that selection, so we can right click and choose Feather, and we'll set the feather radius to somewhere perhaps around about 30 pixels and hit OK. And with that done, we can then convert this selection into a layer mask simply by clicking the Add Layer Mask icon here at the bottom of the Layers panel. And what that does is create a layer mask that hides everything on that layer apart from the area that we selected. And as you can see, it reveals the hand from the bottom layer. So now we've got both hands that we need for our effect. And we might need to just tweak the positioning of this layer. So I'm just going to tap the arrow keys a couple of times after grabbing the Move tool here, just to nudge that top layer around, just so that the alignment matches on the background. And that's looking good. Next, we need to replace the head here. So let's go back into Bridge and grab our third image. And we'll open that one up. And let's just zoom in close to the head. And we'll grab the Quick Selection tool from the Tools panel over here. And we can use the left and right square bracket keys on our keyboard to resize the brush tip. And we're just going to make a selection of the head. And once that selection is made, we can go to Refine Edge at the top here just to improve it as much as we can. We could perhaps up the radius slightly, and if there are any longer bits of hair, we can just paint around the edge of the hair here to try and improve the selection edge around this area. And when we're happy, we can choose Output to Selection and hit OK. Then once again we need to copy this area to our main image, so we'll grab the Move tool again and click and drag that selection up to the tab of our main image and then down in to copy the head over. And let's just zoom in slightly closer to the head here. And again we need to hit Command or Control and T to transform, and we can position it. We can hold Shift and drag the corner points here to resize it to make it slightly larger and get it roughly in the place that we want. We could perhaps rotate it very slightly and keep tweaking the positioning until it looks right. Then we can hit Enter to apply and click the Add Layer Mask button here again at the bottom of the Layers panel. This time we need to paint a layer mask, so we can grab the Brush tool we can set our foreground color to black, and we need to choose a soft edged brush tip, so something like this one here. And then we can just paint with black to blend in the neck around this area here, just to create a nice soft transition between the layers. So now we've combined all the different parts that we need for our effect. We've got the right hand, the left hand, and the head. The only thing left to do really is to tidy everything up, because obviously there are a few rough patches around the image here. So what we can do is click the create new layer icon here in the layers panel to give us a new empty layer, and then I'm going to drag that layer below the head layer. In fact, we could just rename the layers here. We'll call this top one head, we'll call this one right hand, and this bottom one left hand. And this layer here that we just created, we'll call this layer cloning. Then we can grab the clone tool from the tools panel over here, and in the options at the top here, we want to make sure sample is set to current and below. That means that we can clone on this layer here while sampling from all of the layers below it. Now let's zoom in to the hand over here. So I'll hit 0 to set the clone tool opacity to 100%. I can hold Alt and sample a clean area next to the area that I want to fix. So I'm just going to sample this area of the background here, and then carefully paint in towards the head like this. And as you can see, because we're cloning behind that cutout head on the top layer, we don't need to be too precise about things. You can get in quite close to the head there. And we might need to rebuild some parts of the body here if there are any bits missing, in which case we can just join up the shoulder there. And then again, we can use the left and right square bracket keys to resize our brush tip and just finish off by being a bit more careful around this area here, just to create a nice smooth shoulder. And then of course we just need to tidy up any other rough areas around our image here. So as you can see, there's a bit of a reflection here from the light that we used to shoot this. And again, we can just use the clone tool to get rid of that. So we can just paint in from the side here and from this side. So I'll just pause the video here while I continue tidying things up, and I'll come back to you when I'm done. So I've just spent a couple more minutes tidying up these rough patches around the image, and that's my finished effect. Now, to end things off, we could, if we like, create a new layer at the top of our layers panel here by merging a copy of all of the other layers. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control Shift Alt and E to merge a copy. And then I'm going to use the camera raw filter to create more of a stylized look. So we'll go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and we'll just perhaps up the shadows. We could up the clarity here to add more crunch to the image. We could perhaps up the vibrance slightly, maybe knock down the saturation to give it more of a moody, desaturated look. We could up the contrast slightly, maybe up the exposure very slightly. Perhaps add a cool tint by dropping the temperature down. And I'm happy with that, so I'll hit OK. And all that's left to do really is crop off the messy edges. So we'll grab the crop tool. We can choose a ratio at the top here, and then just crop in to get rid of any messy edges around the frame like that. And that's our finished impossible mirror effect. So there we go. That's how to merge 3 layers into one to create an image that couldn't possibly exist.